everybody. This is Pat Campbell.
Oh, you can see me, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and we just helped him with the tree, took the limbs off, took the top out, and he's gonna fall the rest. But Pat, how long did you fall timber for?
25 plus years, and then another 4 or 5 strictly doing fires, but during the 25 years I was doing fires off and on.
Yeah, and we worked a little bit with you on the
Yeah.
Salmon River crew. But
Yeah.
I had one question for you today, since you've done this kind of work for so long. Is what do you think? What do you think the tips or tricks are to longevity in this job?
I wrote a few things down, and when a guy starts out, you know, my attitude was where I didn't have experience, I'd make up with hustle and speed. But when I look back, I'm thinking, you know what, I didn't gain that much, because you try to get going faster, you start getting stuck in your bucks, you know, and it just doesn't pay off. The trick is to use your head, not your body, as much as you can. When I look back at it, well, Checkman, I fell timber a couple days with Checkman Broom, and he was in his 70s, and we call him Wook, and I'd watch him, and he was just moving slow. It looked like he was moving slow as a snail. And then at the end of the day, I look at his strip, and he's got dang near as much on the ground as I did. And so I started watching him a little bit the next day, and he just never wasted a step. You know, he always knew where his next tree was. And that's one of the things I'd say, if you're on a yarder, you can't kind of look over your strip. You know, one thing I always said, if I see a bad tree on the way down, I'd never look at it for days going by it every day. I'd try to leave it till I got everything cleared below me, and then I'd make my decisions on it.
Yeah.
Because you just worry about it. You start thinking about that nasty tree, and you don't sleep well at night. You need your sleep. So just simple things like that. I like to, on cat ground, I'd like to look over the strip if I have the opportunity. You know, maybe the evening before or something like that, when you get done with your other strip, and just kind of get it in your head what you want to do with it, rather than just get out there and start running around hacking and thrashing. You know, a lot of outfits that's all about production, gets wood on the ground, and they were busting wood up and not laying their strips out. And when you start banging the wood on the ground and not laying your strips out right, you're going to be spending more time bucking for breakage, and it just doesn't lay out right, and then it just keeps the loggers happy, and the loggers happier, and they're not on your butt about it all day, you know.
Yeah.
And there's just certain things you can do there. So one of the things I just say is use your head, you know. Yeah. And they always say that whatever percentage, a high percentage of your injuries is the last hour, because you're tired. And you just got to stay with your focus throughout the day. You know, say, should I go get that other tree? Yeah, maybe go get it, but come in it with the same fresh attitude you did with the first tree.
Yeah.
Don't start getting lazy on getting away from the stump. On fires, that's a whole different deal, but on fires, try to always get two ways away from the stump, 2 directions out. In greenwood, it's a different deal. Yeah, when you get into a bad tree on fires, especially, it's no hurry, it's no rush. You're not out there impressing anybody. Walk around and make sure you got it in your head exactly what you want to do with this tree. Don't kind of start it out and go out kind of wing it as I go. No, have a plan.
Yeah.
With those nasty trees. Then when you walk up to a tree, 90% of the time, I'd say your first impression is probably going to be the way you're going to go with it.
On the lean?
On the lean.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes the more you start looking at it, the more you start, and then you mull it all over and you go, yeah, I like my first impression. And usually it's the first impression. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to square up a tree and all that kind of stuff, but that's just one of the things that I used to do. Whenever you're cutting snags, especially if you're in an area and they want you to leave snags so many per acres, especially in white fir. If you're putting down good wood and you may hit that ground and never touch that white fur stag. Keep an eye on it for a second, because just the impact sometimes will just, all of a sudden that tree, I've had one where, I can think of it right now, where hit the ground, never touched the tree. It was probably about a 80-foot snag, rotten white fur. They had it marked to leave for whatever, owls or whatever, wildlife. And I turned my back on it, and all of a sudden I had that instinct feeling. That's one other thing. You've got a gut feeling, pay attention to it. And I had a gut feeling, turned around, looked, and it was about 10 feet above my head. It broke off. I went limp. The pile drove me into the ground, but where it hit me, it was just duff. So when you're in those white fur snags, especially, don't count on them being solid.
Yeah.
Don't, just never take your eye off them. Cat faces. You see a lot of people falling into the cat face. Try not to when you can't. When you try to follow it either off to either side of the cat face. If you have to follow it into the cat face, make sure you put, even if it's an inch or two, get an inch or two notch on each leg.
Yeah.
And give it something to sit down into, even if it's just that little bit. A lot of people just go, just whack it off into the face cut. I've seen it, and I just go, oh my gosh. Because they will do some tricky stuff. That old cedar, I've seen old cedars barb a chair if you don't give them somewhere to sit down into.
Yeah.
How many times have we seen videos of people that fall a tree and they didn't cut that pole that's laying down beside the tree, and it whacks them and breaks their thigh bone or something like that. If you got poles laying around, buck them up.
Yeah,
Buck them up to get them at least to where the stump is, so that if it does go off a few degrees and catch the top of that pole, it doesn't come up and knock you senseless.
Yep.
Don't size up a tree from the downhill side. Unless you really can't decide. You've looked it over and you really, then you might go down to the downhill side, but it throws your whole perspective off. And then you go, oh, I didn't see that, you know, and it really starts making you doubt yourself more, because you're going to be following it from the uphill side 99% of the time. So do your work from the uphill side, plan on it, and don't look down from the downhill side. It just kind of messes you up. Hardwoods. I don't know how many times I thought I could bust a limb out of a hardwood. I think of down along the highway down there in Dog Creek, and you got 3 40-footers, and they're only, 24 inches on the stump, straight as an arrow, and you think that Doug fir will just tear that oak limb out. Don't do it. Go cut them hardwoods out of the way. I've had one go where it slid back up, went up and over my head, and slammed down 2 feet on the other side of me. Pure luck I didn't get killed.
Yeah.
But get those hardwoods out of the way. I just can't stress enough that.
Yeah, I've learned that the hard way myself.
Man, everybody will have one of those where you think you can do it, and then they learn the hard way, but probably 1 out of 20 guys gets hammered.
Yeah.
So don't take that risk. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, clear that layout.
Clear your spot out in the hardwoods. Make sure you got a good hole, and if you're not sure your skills where you can hit that hole, by golly, go cut that thing out of the way. Have a plumb bob in your pocket. Anything on a string. If you don't like packing plumb bobs because they're hanging there, use your axe as a plumb bob. When in doubt, grab the plumb bob.
Yeah.
It just gives you another idea of it. Wind out, especially. Yeah, when it's windy, get your safety wedge in there. I've had them where on a fire where that tree was out there at the unbelievable lean, heavy downhill lean with limbs, and a weird afternoon gust came up and it pushed that tree. I mean, I had 2 inches of lift. Pushed that tree up, and I grabbed my wedge to get it in there, couldn't do it. It went up and over backwards, hit a drone that was up the hill behind me that split it in half, and pinned me to the ground with the top. And I was 40, 50 feet away from the stump at a 90-degree angle.
Yeah.
And you know, in the afternoon, if there's some gusty winds, always stick a safety wedge in. It takes just a few seconds. You know, if I had done that, it would have stopped it, and I wouldn't have had that risk that I put myself and my partner through. Because he was spotting for me. He thought I was dead. He was crying when he got to me.
Oh man.
Oh, I was face down and going, "Get me out of here," you know. And it was pretty hot coals. I'm going, find my glasses. Fuck me out of here. You know, it was a pretty bad deal. I mentioned the last hour of the day is most injuries. Use your ears. People don't listen when they're getting away. If you're following a tree into other trees, whether it's green or especially if you're falling into a tree snagged with limbs, know where, have in your head when you hear that limb pop, where you want to be by then. And so that you can hear and you know what's going on, even though you're turning your back and running, you know what angle that tree is at by the way the limbs are popping.
Yeah.
I rarely ever hear a tree hit the ground. You really don't.
Right.
But you listen to those sounds as it's going down. Falling in snags. Well, yeah, I mentioned that. Watch for Shasta firs. Open up the face cut. They love to barber-chair, and the Forest Service always wants those swelled up Shasta firs low to the ground. They want them low to the ground. Well, get them as low as you can. If you got to put a new top cut and face cut on it to make it look lower, that do whatever you do to trick them. But open that face cut up. They are notorious for barber-cherry.
Okay.
Get down to it, when you tell equipment operators something, you say you're going to go out into the morning. This isn't for your own safety, it's for other people's safety around you. You say, "Hey, I got this tree that I want to get down before you bring the cats up." "Oh yeah, fine, we're fueling up, you got plenty of time." Then all of a sudden they change their mind and you go to follow that tree and it's out there, and all of a sudden you hear them coming up over the ridge and it's going already. I had one at the treetop after I told the guys, had other followers on the cat, and ended up putting a tree out over his blade, and he wasn't too happy, and we had a little argument over it because I told you that. You know, wait till that tree's down. Don't think that they'll always remember it.
Yeah.
On fires, if you're on fires, make sure you have a partner you can trust. It makes all the difference in the world on fires. You know, they put these teams together with the big companies. You make sure you get somebody that you trust, because you're putting your life in jeopardy. I've had really great ones, but when you get one bad one, somebody that's spacing out, looking around when they're supposed to be watching embers falling down your collar,
Yeah.
it can kind of tick you off. And it kind of ruins your season if you get stuck with one of those guys. And the last thing I always say is have a fresh wedge in your pocket. It'll get you out of trouble. So not in your pocket, if you're in your pack, you know, you have one sit back, but you can get that fresh wedge instead of having to put a notch the other way and going up and over and taking that risk of it spinning around on the stump. You can many times get a nice fresh wedge in there, and all it takes is to get that little bit, and you can make it work. That's just some of the tips I have. The main thing is use your head, you know, especially when you start out young. Don't get too big a hurry. You can save your steps. You can make up the time by using your brain instead of your body.
Yeah, I like that.
That's the number one tip I can give to a young guy going out there. And any opportunity, whether it's in the bar or sitting on the pickup, listen to those old timers and take the tips. You know, one other one. Bill Miles told me one time, sitting down at the Callahan bar, a mile and a half from here. He said, "Pat, always go with the weight is in the butt You know, it's the butt every time, because all the weight in the sugar pine is in the butt and in the cedar.
Yeah.
And you can save yourself a lot of beaten noses.
I like
Because there's
that.
no, you know, as it is, these trees, cedar trees, there's no weight up there.
No.
And, yeah,
They're my least favorite tree to climb.
yeah.
One of them.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So-
okay. Well, thank you, Pat.
Yeah,
Thank you so
bet.
much.
My pleasure.